Son las 7 de la mañana, 20 minutos. Vámonos hasta Ucrania. Vamos a hablar a esta hora con el consejero y el portavoz del Ministerio de Defensa del Ejército de Ucrania, quien nos atiende a esta hora. Es el señor Yuri Sak. Mr. Sak, thank you very much for having the time to talk to us. Good morning.
Good afternoon where we are, and thank you very much for inviting me.
La primera pregunta que le quiero hacer es, ¿cuál es la situación que se vive hasta ahora en Ucrania? Las noticias que nos llegan a este lado del planeta es que los rusos han estado planeando y ejecutando una segunda ola de ofensiva. ¿Qué tan fuerte es esta segunda ola de ofensiva? Mr. Sak, the stories that we're getting in this part of the world is basically that Russia has been starting a second wave of attacks against Ukraine. Is that correct? How is life right now in Ukraine?
Well, this war began on February 24th, and this is considered to have been the first phase of the war. And of course, the Russian aggressor was hoping that they will be able to conquer Ukraine in 3 days. This didn't happen, of course, because Ukrainian armed forces have been able to resist and actually even drive away the enemy from cities like Kyiv, from major cities like Chernihiv in Ukraine. And the second phase to which you're referring to, it began roughly, we believe, about a week and a half ago. And again, Russia's plans perhaps were to have another blitzkrieg, and they were hoping that they will be able to achieve military success in the east of Ukraine very fast. But essentially, nothing has changed considerably during the last 2 weeks since the beginning of this second phase. But at the same time, the situation in the east of Ukraine today is very difficult. The fighting there is very heavy and intense. There are certain places in the south of Ukraine, like Mariupol, like Kherson, where they've temporarily occupied those cities, and there is a lot of problems in terms of humanitarian situation, because in the city of Mariupol, for example, there are tens of thousands of people who are willing to evacuate from that zone, but yet Russia has been obstructing evacuations, and Russia continues to throw everything they have at the city of Mariupol. Bombs, anti-bunker bombs, missiles, artillery shelling. So the situation is, in some parts of Ukraine, very, very precarious.
Nos dice a esta hora el vocero del Ministerio de Defensa que la guerra empezó en febrero 24 y que esa era la primera fase de los rusos, que los rusos esperaban que en 3 días conquistaban Ucrania, pero que no lo lograron, porque los ucranianos hicieron que se tuvieran que ir de Kiev y de otras ciudades al presentar resistencia militar. Asegura que la segunda fase de ataque de los rusos entonces, después de esta semiderrota, comenzó hace una semana y nuevamente esperaban los rusos tener éxito, pero nada de eso ha logrado desde el principio de la segunda fase. La situación, nos dice, en el este es de pelea intensa. En el sur, donde están ciudades como Mariupol, la situación es compleja y hay varias dificultades humanitarias. Por ejemplo, nos comenta que hay miles de personas que quieren evacuar la zona, pero que continúa Rusia obstruyendo la movilización de personas y atacando con todo lo que tienen contra Mariupol. En resumen, asegura que aunque las tropas ucranianas y los civiles ucranianos siguen mostrando resistencia, la situación sigue siendo muy difícil en Ucrania. Quiero preguntarle sobre las armas y sobre la situación de las armas que le llega a los ucranianos por parte de la comunidad internacional. ¿Considera él son suficientes? ¿Qué más se necesita? ¿Y cuál cree él va a ser el fin de esta guerra y de esta confrontación? Mr. Sak, we would like to know how important are right now the weaponry that has been sent by the U.S. and its European allies to Ukraine and the military forces of Ukraine. Are they good weaponry? Is it important that the flow continues? And how do you feel it's going to be the end of this Russian invasion?
Well, while it is difficult to predict, of course, how long this invasion will last, the military assistance that Ukraine is receiving now from our Western allies is, of course, extremely important. And our president, Mr. Zelensky, and our Minister of Defense, Mr. Alexei Reznikov, they have been saying this for, more than a month now, that for Ukrainian armed forces to be more efficient, for Ukraine to be able to protect its skies, we need heavy weaponry, and we need heavy long-range artillery, we need tanks, we need multi-launch rocket systems, we need anti-warship missiles, and of course we need combat aircraft. And at the moment we have begun receiving heavy artillery. For example, today the spokesperson for the US Pentagon said that almost half of the promised howitzers, heavy artillery howitzers, have been already delivered to Ukraine, and this is good beginning, and we are quietly optimistic. But of course, the amount of weaponry that we have received so far is not sufficient, and for us to be able to win, for us to be able to put a stop to this invasion, we will require much more heavy weaponry.
Nos dice que es muy difícil predecir cuánto durará todo esto. Sobre la asistencia militar que se está recibiendo en Ucrania, asegura que es muy importante. Sostiene que el presidente ucraniano Volodymyr Zelensky lleva diciendo días que para que las fuerzas militares ucranianas puedan continuar dando la batalla, se necesita artillería, misiles y aviones de combate. Asegura que por el momento ya han empezado a recibir artillería pesada y que, por ejemplo, hoy recibieron una buena noticia por parte del Pentágono de los Estados Unidos diciendo que por lo menos la mitad de lo que van a enviar acaba de ser mandado, pero que lo que tienen hoy, el armamento que tienen hasta hoy, no es suficiente para seguir dando la pelea en Ucrania, la pelea por su país, la pelea contra Rusia. A ver, Don Azuri tiene pregunta.
Pues Luis Carlos, es en el término de lo humano, de lo cotidiano en cada uno de estos soldados ucranianos, 64 días resistiendo al enemigo. ¿Cómo hacen para soportarlo? ¿Cómo sortean ese agotamiento?
Estamos hablando con Yuri Sak, él es consejero y portavoz del Ministerio de Defensa y del Ejército de Ucrania. Mr. Sak, we would like to know, and we are wondering, how is the resistance doing? How is the Ukrainian military forces doing? You guys have been fighting for about 64 days against the Russians. Aren't you tired? And how are your country, trying to resist being totally exhausted by the war?
The ability of the Ukrainian armed forces to resist Russian aggressor, of course, was a surprise for the majority of the world. Everybody was not expecting that Ukrainian armed forces will be able to put up such resistance to the army, which is until recently was believed to be the second largest army, right? So while it is indeed the 64th day of this war, it is still, Ukrainian armed forces are in good shape. They are very determined because we are, as you understand, we are fighting for our land, and we are highly motivated. And of course, the more heavy weaponry we will receive from our partners, it will be, very decisive for our ability to resist and to win this war.
Dice que la habilidad de las fuerzas militares para enfrentar a los rusos ha sido una sorpresa grande para el mundo, que reconoce que esperaba que el planeta no esperaba que fueran capaces de enfrentar al segundo ejército más grande del planeta, el ruso, pero que llevan 64 días y aunque son días largos, las fuerzas ucranianas están en buen espíritu, altamente motivadas y bien, pero claro que para poder continuar la guerra efectivamente es necesario poder recibir más armamento internacional para poder dar la guerra. Impresionante testimonio del señor Yuri Sak, consejero y portavoz del Ministerio de Defensa y del Ejército de Ucrania. Mr. Sak, thank you very much for having the time to talk to us. We really appreciate it, and best of luck in your war a war that the world is following very closely, and we want you to know that we are on your side. We are cheering for you and your army and your country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you very much for supporting Ukraine. This is very important for us.
Nos dice que muchas gracias por apoyar a Ucrania.